Hello. Good afternoon. It is Daily Live Extra. Me and Jack on the Monday show after a weekend of what I would say is bliss, Jack. Absolute bliss.
An Everton this weekend. Lesser spotted. The lesser spotted, no Everton weekend, and it's good. It's peaceful. A bit less stress, a bit less agony. You know, given the way things have been lately, you're still expecting a new story from the Daily Mail or another suitable newspaper about how Everton will explode in 10 minutes if they don't raise 800 billion to pay off the debts for the coffee machine or something random like that. But no, we didn't play, which means we haven't been beat this weekend. There's been a less disaster news than we've been used to over the weekend. Absolutely. But unfortunately, we have seen arguably our best player this year linked with a move away, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, and we will discuss that. What are you getting all weird for? You were looking over to Jack as in you wanted to say something to him.
Yeah, he did.
Like, sort your mic out, I think you were going to say, maybe. No, Doucoure has been linked. Doucoure has been linked with a move, hasn't he, to Saudi Arabia, which is interesting because he doesn't play for Newcastle. So why would you be linked with? Why would he be linked? More on that on More Than a Game after this show. But yeah, there has been a link with Doucoure. He's a player he's not available at the moment, and we don't know how long he's not going to be available for us. But he is definitely a player that we cannot do without. Clearly, one win in Sean Dyche's time at Everton without him, and that came last week in the FA Cup game. So there's no way Everton could do without him, is there?
No, definitely not. And we've seen it, like you just said, what we are without Doucoure. And it's not even just the results, the performances are generally quite bad without Doucoure because we need him on the pitch to play the way we play. There's not that many players who can do the role Doucoure does for us. I don't mean in terms of quality necessarily, but in terms of style. And then with the quality as well, he is performing well in that role as well. So he really just facilitates us to play the way we want to play. I think without him, we've seen how much Dyche struggles to get this team worked out to still, replicate that the best he can, just because there's no one else in our team who does what he does. We've seen, Gomez have a go, and, he does all right, but physically he's just not the same animal that Doucoure is. Dan Juma just doesn't seem switched on enough to play that role in terms of, Doucoure always just runs brilliantly, and he'll do the yards as well. He'll drop back into midfield and make us 5 out of the ball sometimes, and just in terms of finding a player who A, has the quality to do that, and B, has the work rate and the mental side to, be able to manage that. I think they're quite few and far between, to be honest, and there's a reason why he's popped up with so many goals for us. He's a very important player. Even in better circumstances, if we had our 10 points back, there wasn't all the financial stuff hanging over our heads, you still really wouldn't want to sell him because he's been that important for us. You could see the argument a little bit more. You look at his age and his injury record and his wages and that and go, get some money and buy someone younger. You'd still want to keep him at the end of the day because he's a very good player.
We haven't got the players, let's be honest, to be getting rid of really anybody at the moment. The squad is so small that it only takes a couple of players not being around to really destable them, and also it only takes a couple of players, certain types as well. If Ashley Young's out, that affects back up for right back, left back, and right midfield. Which means if Doucoure's out, Jack Harrison doesn't move from right midfield to centre where the manager seems to like him, and all these little key components that we have because players are covering each other's positions and stuff like that, rather than being two players for each position. No, I don't think we could afford to do that right now. I think this Everton are sort of finally balanced, where it's almost like that thing of it only takes one. It's like having all your bills covered, and then the washing machine breaks or something. It's that's all it takes to absolutely destroy your life and your finances. That's how I feel about Everton. So when it comes to stuff like this, there's no way we could sell them. I don't think. If there's a market there now, there'll be a market there in the summer, you'd imagine, and Everton I don't think Everton would want to sell him anyway, but just because he is so key. And also, the other side of it, from his side of it, this is a player that didn't go the AFCON because he basically stressed that he wanted to play for his club, give something back to his club. He said a few times, I think, that he wants to stay in England, finish his career in the Premier League. He doesn't strike me as a player who wants away and also would want away to Saudi, where you are essentially going into semi-retirement. And we already know now that it is pretty much a failing experiment, Saudi. And that, again, might be a conversation to have later on when we're on More Than a Game. But it does feel like that is not going the way they thought it was going by just throwing money at it. Attendances haven't gone up and things like that. So I think he'd want to stay. I think Everton want to stay. And I think you can't be looking to sell. Just be looking to sell your best players if you don't have a plan. And also because there's good money there. Because Everton can't just do that. You still need to put 11 players on the pitch, and 11 players in their key positions. No,
like you say, Everton's squad's just so thin, isn't it? And all our backups for our key positions, they're already on the pitch in their preferred roles, and it's okay. We'll bring someone out of their comfort zone, like a Jack Harrison, who maybe fills the gap. Everton won't want to sell him, even if, we could do with the money. The financial losses to selling him would be bigger, because I think we'd probably go down without Doucoure. He's been that important to us.
Absolutely.
But the only other side is if the player wants to move, and now obviously he's spoken about staying in England, and he looks like he's really enjoying his football at Everton. The Saudi Arabia move hasn't worked for a lot of players, mainly because the lifestyle adjustments.
Yeah.
Abdoulaye Doucoure is a Muslim himself. I was just double checking that. That's why it's on my phone. I just want
you want to confirm that kind of thing.
So obviously the lifestyle for him might not be as. For a Jordan Henderson who moves there, for example, it's a bit of a culture shock. For Doucoure, maybe it's not quite the same. There's still the football inside of things, and there's the quality of.
But there's also there's also the lifestyles. This is a guy who spent most of his footballing life in England, and I still think it would still be a culture shock to him. I still think it's still a part of the world that doesn't come from. I still think it would be a culture shock to a lot of people, because without getting too deep into it, there's having the religious side of somebody's life, but then there's also having the freedoms that go along with being like maybe in a Western country that may not be there. And again, I'm not saying that's a right thing or a wrong thing. That's for other people's countries. I mean, don't want to get into that debate, but someone who's spent their life in a Western country, France and then England, I think that's still going to be I still believe that's a culture shock. They're going to fit more into this, things.
I think anytime you move from a country that you've lived in for a long time, you move to another country, there's a culture change, isn't there? But obviously he wouldn't know how much he'd enjoy that life until he went there and lived there. The only difference is that he'd have a better understanding of what that life would be, because a lot of their laws are, based in Islam, and what the Quran teaches what is right to do and that, and he'll be more familiar with what that entails than an Englishman who spent his whole life in England who isn't a Muslim would be. But obviously, there might be differences in the Western world that he prefers. And look, we don't know the money side of things. They'd be able to offer him good money, but he is on good money at Everton. Would he prefer it's slightly less money, but it's still very good money, and I can, earn a bit less, but I'm playing in a better league, and, maybe do a bit more with my career that way, and that's something I can be prouder of later in my life. We don't know. That's all up to Doucoure, and I do think, while I don't think he'll depart this window, like you said earlier, that interest will still be there in the summer, especially the Saudi League. They're not against signing older players, so being 6 months older won't make a difference to them. He's going to play well enough if he, manages to get on the pitch regularly to still be in contention for a move. So I think it's something if it doesn't happen now, it could come back in 6 months.
It depends, doesn't it? Because I think, obviously, with Henderson leaving, obviously he's gone to Ajax now. They need to fill the gap. And this is just an obvious name where he might feel like a player who's doing well in the Premier League. And as you've mentioned, for all those reasons, it is a link that makes sense. But I think for him, I think he'd look around and go, I am effectively becoming, effectively partly retiring from football. Yes, I still get to play football, but I mean, like, the nonsense that Ronaldo's come out with, like, over the weekend, saying
outscoring Haaland.
Well, he said the league is now better than the La Liga. Not La Liga, sorry. Ligue 1, sorry. He said it was better now than Ligue 1. It's like, it's not. It's not though, is it?
Is it?
It's not though, is it, mate? It's not. That you'll say that because you want what you're doing over there to be recognised, but it's not.
He's trying to legitimise it because as much as he's a player, he's an ambassador for that league.
It's absolutely nothing league. We see it. We looked at it when it happened. A lot of people, people bought into it in terms of the players who were bringing in. But after 6 months, it's basically the Chinese situation when they did it. The status quo of football will never change. It will never change. It will always be about the 5 big leagues in Europe, and all it'll do is once in a while maybe it'll change which one's the big one, and that's all. And that's becoming less and less now because of the Premier League. But no other country on earth will take that away. No one. No, there isn't one in Asia. There's not one in the Middle East. There's certainly not one in America. North America or South America will ever take it away. It just won't happen. Money, yes, can lure players away, but after a certain amount of time, if those players have still got a hunger and a drive, they'll want to have that. And playing in front of 700,000 people will not do it for people, because that's when you're a big footballer. That is part of the attraction. It's playing in front. We saw that with lockdown football. How just awful it was, and how when you look back at those games, they were like training matches. That's all they were. And because of that, we got all kinds of weird results, and people going to other people's grounds and winning, and like certainly for Everton. So it's going to die on its arse. Let's be honest. They'll still attract players. They'll still get that.
The money will always be.
Of course it will. Of course it will. But I don't see Doucoure going there now, or I don't see him going there in the summer, if I'm honest, because I just think he's so important. And it is that importance to the team. It is that importance, the manager needing him so much, that will say to a player like that, I have to stay here because I am, not only does the manager love me, the fans love me, and I'm making a real difference. And also I think for him, he's finally playing in a position that absolutely suits him, and you can see the best of him. And I think for a player who's been, certainly at Everton, I mean, watching him play defensive midfield for a couple of years, it's just like, this is crazy that he's playing there. I think he'll love that, and I think that's what drives him on rather than the money.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with Doucoure. Because remember when Watford bought him at a relatively young age? He was, early 20s, and I think his first year he actually got sent out on loan from them, because that's what they did at Forest. Basically, they'd come up and they bought 20 players and then couldn't register them all. So, and he had some good years at Watford, some years where it weren't as good, or the chopping and changing of managers will obviously affect that. So, maybe for him as a young man at 23, 24, maybe a couple of years after the fact, his career maybe wasn't quite going the way he thought, right, I'm moving to England as a young man, I'm going to, play for this team, and you're going to make it with them, or, I'll impress, and as a young player, someone will come and buy me and I'll do great. And so he got the Everton move first season under Ancelotti. He was good, I thought. After that, it started to taper off, but he Rafa Benitez was never going to work, because Rafa Benitez was never going to work, and he just wasn't what Frank Lampard wanted or really thought a midfielder should be. So at that stage in his career, not really getting in the Everton team, I think even a year ago, I don't think anyone thought Doucoure would probably still be here a year on, because he wasn't getting in the team. His
well, he was very close to going
out.
to Fulham, wasn't he?
Yeah, then, he wasn't training with the team, and his contract's running out. He's on massive wages, and he's being seen as another one of these players brought in for big money. We'll let them go for free because they've just not worked, but we'll get the wage gone, and that'll be that, and we can move on. Now he's indispensable because he's getting played in his role, and that could mean something to him as well. This idea of, look, it's not always been this good. Yeah. It's good now. If I move, yes, there's the financial benefits, and I can keep playing in this league even once and past my prime physically because they won't care. No one's even going to notice. But I've got it good now, and for the next 2 years I could have it good, and have it the way I wanted it to be 5 years ago, and we can keep going with that. And there is something to be said for how loved Doucoure is becoming by Everton fans, especially with the important goals he scoring against Bournemouth on the last day. Potentially, hopefully, scoring the goals to keep us up this season as well. Everton fans won't forget that, and Everton is a club where we do have real cult heroes. You see the banners, and players who fans of all clubs might look at them and go, "Oh, well, they only scored so many goals. That's not particularly special. Why I just love them so much." It's like, no, you don't get it. Every club has these where they have a player where the fans just love, and they'll never be forgotten because they did something, or they did a few things that were just massively important. And Everton is a club where we really appreciate those players, and Doucoure certainly becoming one of them. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And the idea of selling them, I just think is, I'm not saying there's an idea to sell them, but I'm just saying none of this, if you can get good money for them, to me, it's just like, what does good money do for a club that where we are right now? Because it's all about, for us now, getting through the next 5 months, isn't it? Hoping that we get some points back.
Hoping that our takeover situation sorted. Yeah.
So the last thing we need is a spanner in the works. But anyway, let's just move on, because another one that caught my eye over the weekend was, I don't know if you've seen this one, but Ben Godfrey again linked to quite a few clubs in Italy. I think it was the likes of Milan, Atalanta, and a few other names. But see, he is one, isn't he, where you're thinking, you go, like, well, we've got two centre-backs there who are playing week in and week out. Got Michael Keane, best finisher at the football club,
who the manager prefers to Ben Godfrey as well.
And of course you want two for every position, so it makes sense. And there is always that risk, and obviously at Burnley we had to play him. But is he the one where you would say, I would take the money for him, actually, if someone come in with a good offer? I mean, at the moment I think it's more talking about loans, but if someone did come in for a good offer with Ben Godfrey, and obviously he has been linked with Spurs as well, is he one that you'd say, actually, that does make sense?
In terms of our expendable players, which we don't have many of because our squad's so thin, and then in terms of those players we could actually sell for a bit of money that someone might actually want, he's the main candidate, isn't he? You look at some of the other undesirables at Everton, no one wants them, let alone wants to pay a few million quid for them. It's not only is he not first choice, he's actually fourth choice. Granted, it's a position where you have two of them players on the pitch, but centre-backs don't get injured or as much as wingers or strikers might do on average. So you don't need as good fourth choice as your third choice, and the manager does see Michael Keane as his clear third choice ahead of Ben Godfrey. So look, if we could get 10 million for him, we're not going to go out and buy a 10 million player because a lot of that money is just going to go to the account, isn't it? But what it might facilitate is 2 loan moves.
But what it is it's 10 million quid. Let's say it's 10 million. It's 10 million quid just sitting on the bench, depreciating all the time. It's just sitting there, and it's taking wages, and it's just sitting there. When we know, I mean, people are saying, well, how much would you take? Would it need to take Doucoure? There's not enough. There's no money, because Doucoure actually does something on the pitch that means that, and where we are, whether we like it or not, means we need players to do a job for us to get us out of where we are right now, unless, as we've said, the the independent commission sort that for us. Their players you just wouldn't sell. But Ben Godfrey, I think, is one where I'd look at it and go, is it, if Michael Keane's third choice, and then after that you've got like Michalenko and you've got Seamus Coleman who could play centre-back, I think that money's just sitting there, and I think not only the 10 million, but getting it back and getting it, and obviously the way it all works, profit and sustainability. I think that is money that you would look at and go, see, we are making. No, when people go, we never sold no one, and they sold. Here's someone I'd sit there and go, I think you have to make a calculated decision on that. That is a risk. Of course, it's a risk, Salmon, because you could end up in a situation where you lose a couple of players. But you have to make that risk based on, well, how often does Tarky miss games? Right, we'll touch wood that he doesn't miss any, but how often does he miss games of football? And Jared Brantwaite, he's a young lad, and he plays most games himself. So you have to make that risk, and I think if you could get 10 million quid and get his wages off the books, that is definitely a sign to people, and obviously to the accountants, that you're moving in the right way. Of course, listen, you need a buyer for that. Don't get me wrong, this is all speculation, but I do think you have to make that calculated gamble now and again for a player who's not playing.
Yeah, just looping back to what you said about Doucoure with the comments. To be honest, there is no figure I'd sell him for, not even just because of performance, but even if, say, they came in with 80 million, they wouldn't, I'm exaggerating.
Yeah.
We wouldn't spend 80 million on players. That would spend 40 because it's all going to go to the accounts. And if you're talking a figure that high, with the money we might spend out of that sum, we might buy someone good enough, but it's still a gamble when we're not in a position to really take gambles. So with Godfrey, he's not playing. It's his wages off the books that'll bring our expenses down slightly as well. And it's 10 million in the bank. We won't be buying anyone, but we might pay a couple of small loan fees. We'll still keep the lion's share of that 10 million, so that's still in the bank. And it means we've got one player out the door who doesn't play because he's a fourth choice centre half, and we've maybe got two players who will play because look, we've got a new winger, or there's a new midfielder as well. And that's a position we need bodies, and that might actually make us stronger for, spending less money, bring more in, spend less. That's what we've been asking the club to do for years, isn't it? And in terms of potential move to Italy, I could see that happening. We've seen English centre-halves move to Italy before with Tamori. We mentioned Tanganga going to AC Milan a couple of years back. AC Milan. But, physical centre-halves in Italy, they're not always the most common players because a lot of Italian centre-backs, a lot of Italian players move a bit slower, more about being better on the ball, a bit reading the game.
Don't exactly
better.
Get pacey Italian centre-forwards either, you know what I mean?
No, and that's probably why someone like Beto got a good goal return in that league, because his physicality far surpassed that of the defenders in that league on average, whereas, maybe a lot of Italian teams are looking at more physical centre-halves and going, okay, can we get the balance between, what we have and what is the Italian way, and a bit more physicality to combat these players who might not be great, but physically they're just blowing us away. And that is Ben Godfrey's bread and butter.
Yeah,
really,
exactly. Yeah, I think he'd do well there. I think we often think about Italian defenders or as being of literally the highest tier, but because they're not playing against the best forwards out there, and they're not the most physical and they're not the fastest. You only have to look at like someone at Napoli and see his size and see how well he does. And the I can never pronounce his name, the winger at Napoli as well,
Kev.
Big Kev, the Georgian. How well he's done because of how fast and how tricky he is. Now we know Tanganga never went to Milan. He went to Millwall, but he was heavily linked with Milan and he wanted him. It fell through. We actually talked about this last week. Thanks for watching.
We were just talking about how sad it was.
Yeah, we were talking about how sad it was that play.
Milan.
Well, it got that close to Tanganga going to Milan. If you watch the documentary on Sky about the deadline day and how close it got, and it fell through because Spurs wouldn't let him go, and now he's gone to Millwall alone. We talked about it last week. Thanks for watching. We know he never. So we're saying that, but the size, but the point still stands. The size and the physicality of the player, Ben Godfrey would do very, very well, I think, over there, and it would be interesting interesting career move for him. But as I said, I think if a player like that's just sitting on your bench, you're absolutely right what you say. It's not about taking the 10 million and saying, oh, who can we buy for 10 million? That's not how it works. That's not how PSR works. It's about getting that money in and proving that you've taken the money and you've got the wages, which is, again, another important thing. You've got the wages off the books. You have illustrated that you are making changes within your setup and you're trying to get the wage bill down. And you're absolutely right. One of Everton's major problems has been, when it comes to signing players, is Everton don't have the cash up front to pay that first fee. It's why we brought in Beto, because they didn't want anything up front. It's why we lost out on the other kid from last year as well, who went to Italy and done his knee in straight away.
Oh, Bill Altor.
Yeah. It's why we lost out on him, because we didn't have anything to give up front. We just don't. We have to spread the payments, and we don't have. Other clubs can come in and go, we'll give you 10 million down. We don't have that down payment. But it could mean that, yeah, you're absolutely right. The wages going out could mean suddenly you get two players that play in a right winger or a left winger or a number 10 or whatever, and suddenly we've got one player out, got his wages, got a bit of money, and replaced them with a couple of smart loans. So that is definitely one I would look at. It's a calculated risk, and I think Everton have to make calculated risks, because we also have a manager who can say to players, can you slot in here for me? Can you do this job for me? It mightn't be pretty, but I could see easily Michalenko playing centre-back. I could see Seamus Coleman playing centre-back. If they had to play in a 3, they had to play in a 3. I could see that happening. And we have to do those deals. We have to be smart about what we've got. Getting rid of Doucoure and saying, oh, we're getting 30 million, 40 million for Doucoure, whatever, isn't smart, because it takes away one of your best players. But getting rid of a player who just doesn't play every week and doing something with that is smart business.
Yeah, and just the potential cash we could potentially get for him. I know you said it's mainly loans that are being rumoured at the moment, but in the last few weeks we have seen figures of around 10 to 12 million being speculated. And you have got to remember, if we do make sales, it's not all going to come back onto the pitch, but it might mean 2 loans, which might mean 2 places higher.
I think what we've got to get used to, and this is something that I think a lot of our fans are aware of this, and we've seen this when Iwobi went. We are going to sell players, and that money is going to just disappear. It's going to go.
Richarlison,
it's just going to disappear, because we are in such a financial state. And we all know that. We all know we've been charged again. That money has to go servicing debt, and it has to go on the books. So when someone opens the books, and that, unfortunately, is just the way of the world now. That we are, if you sell a player, don't go, where's the Arteta money? Because that's where the Arteta money went as well, by the way. Sorry to break that to you, but that's where that went as well. It went on paying debts, and just someone asked in, why did I shout Milan? It's because Jack has a terrible habit of saying AC, and I just won't stand for it. I will not stand for it.
Everyone knows, Tomas.
I will not stand for it. They are called Milan.
AC Milan.
They're not called AC Milan. They're called Milan. No, but does that say on your badge?
AC Milan.
Does that say on your badge? Put your mic up. Put your camera on. Put your camera on.
Put
your camera on.
Says Milan.
Put your camera on.
But it's also
camera. I want
AC
cameras.
on it.
I want cameras. I'd like a camera, please. There you go. Show everyone what it says at the top of your badge.
It does say AC on it.
It does say AC on there.
Not that
actually
badge,
says.
badge. Oh, that's because it's
it says
a DH.
ACM. Actually,
That's
did you know
it's a DH. That's why.
AC Milan? Almost.
Says it on all of them.
Yeah.
No,
That's because it's a DH.
It also says Champions League final
Oh, yeah.
2007.
I just wanted to show him.
Who did they beat, Jack?
They beat
What does it say on
Liverpool?
What does it say on the Champions League bit, by the way? Just so I can...
2007
No, what
Champions
does it
League
say though?
final.
Actually,
It should have thingy on it.
What does it say? Yeah, then it's DH.
The final,
Final.
Athens, 2007, 23rd of May, Olympic Stadium. And they won 2-1.
Who you got on the back? 2-1 they did.
Kaka.
Nearly
I was gonna. I was at
spin.
Kaka or Inzaghi.
Should have got Inzaghi.
I wouldn't mind Gattuso, but
You couldn't pull off Gattuso.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you need a bit about you.
Yeah, I think
I don't
so,
know
yeah.
enough goals for
On the
He's
Inzaghi.
got a goatee.
Yeah.
So I done Kaka.
There you go.
Nestor or Maldini would have been cool too, but I'm not tall enough.
The answer is always Maldini. Always.
What's the question?
Doesn't matter.
This is what you want for lunch.
He's
Maldini.
probably the best Milan name you can get.
It's always. They retired this
He's
shit.
got the retired number as well.
Well, we
hasn't he? So it's
talked
cool.
about retired numbers last week because we were talking about Jordan Henderson not getting the number 14 at Ajax. Some interesting ones.
I think if I walked into like the Milan club shop and it was like, oh well, what was Maldini's number? Was it 3?
I mean, again, this
Ned's.
is, the youth. It is number 3. Course,
Yeah,
it's number
okay.
3.
So keep your pants on. But if I walked into the Milan shop and I was like, oh, I'll have a number 3
Yeah.
and I'll have Osman 3 Osman Milan shirt. Do you think they'd do it?
No. Emma, sorry, like she says, like to most people, Ped, it's 8. It's not AC though. It's not. It's like calling Everton FC.
Sorry, who said that?
Emma's wrong.
Gonna get on.
Emma's wrong.
I don't
Gonna
mind
get
when
along.
if people say
Because you're an idiot.
no AC Milan. I'm like, it's Milan, but okay. Because
No, you can call it. You can if you want to call it AC Milan. You can
fair
call
enough.
it AC Milan.
But you
right?
can't just call
you
it
can't
AC.
call it. It's
not
unethical.
AC. It's Milan.
It's unethical.
Milan
This
and
conversation did start from me saying AC Milan, to be fair, didn't just say AC. So
No, hang on. Again, Dylan Blue says AC is perfectly fine. No, it's not. No, it's not. You don't call Roma AS.
the future's now, old man.
The future can be whatever
I
it
don't
wants.
call Internationale.
I'm a futurist. People like me write the future. And I'm right into the future, and I'm saying...
No, the future's written back and it said you can call them AC Milan if you want.
No. It's Milan, and it's Inter. And anyone else is just wrong. You can call it AC Milan if you want. You can call it AC Milan, but you can't call it AC.
I'd call it AC.
You just can't.
I'd call it AC Milan.
You just
and
can't,
shouted
right?
at me.
I've been on this earth for a while. You can call it AC
70
Milan if you
years
want, right?
This year.
You can call it AC Milan if you want. You just can't call it AC. You just can't call
I
it.
didn't call it AC. I said AC Milan.
AC, I've said this before, right? AC is like FC. That's what it is.
Yeah, but what you've got to remember is it's cooler than FC because the Italians
Okay.
are cooler than us.
But it might
so
be-
we respect that
All right,
coolness
then,
and we go, yeah,
Fair play.
AC.
You can have that coolness. You can have that. You can keep that. But
I acknowledge your coolness.
But yeah. Milan. Internationale and Milan. AC Milan, Inter Milan. You can have them. You can have
you
them.
can say Inter Milan.
You can say
you've
it.
shouted at me for
No,
that
no,
before.
you can say Inter Milan if you want. But you just can't say AC.
I haven't.
Emma, pipe down. I want my show, my rules,
going, Emma.
my
Keep
anger.
going.
Thank you very much.
Can you call Athletic Club Athletic Bilbao though? Because that's not actually their name. It's Athletic.
See, this
Club,
is the
isn't
problem. These are.
I say Bilbao.
These are
I
the
say
things.
Bilbao.
This is because what's happened is English people have decided, or whatever, or the media have decided how to like categorize because they don't understand. So you have to ask them, don't you?
Can you speak?
They're not here.
Can you speak Basque?
No, can you?
No.
I know a bit of Spanish.
Well, they don't speak Spanish, do they? In Bilbao, they speak
I know,
Basque.
but not like they might know Spanish though.
I think they do. I think they do speak Spanish.
But
They speak
Basque is like a
Yeah, I know,
variation of
but I think-
Spanish.
They hate Spanish, don't they? They probably don't now. But Basque came from because they didn't like.
Do you want
the
to hear a
Spanish.
story? You want to hear a story very quickly? Want to hear a story? So when I went to watch Real Madrid versus Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League in 2004, and we had this massive big Everton flag with us that we were taking to the game, and we unveiled it sort of in this park to get a picture of it, and the police come chasing after us. They thought we were Basque demonstrators.
Oh really?
And honestly,
was there flags like a bit?
so they thought we were Basque demonstrators, and they come over and we had to like put the flag away and like scarper dead quickly.
I mean,
like.
that's just quite embarrassing for Everton as a club because people don't know what our badge is and think it's a variation of the Basque national flag.
Know, but yeah, they thought we were Basque.
It's quite embarrassing,
this
really.
pale ginger fella from Bilbao.
There's a lot of pale ginger people from the north of Spain.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know about pale
It's not
ginger
like
Mexicans.
dead sunny up there, in the north of Spain.
In the north of Spain.
Because it's like on the Atlantic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's quite like
We're north of Spain now.
mad winds and stuff.
No, Ned, we're not in the north of Spain. We're in England.
No, we're north of Spain, aren't we? We're north of
I know.
Spain.
I
They
know. I
look
heard
north,
you.
they'll
I
say
know.
us
You're
north.
right. I was making a joke.
Oh.
Emma, you're just wrong.
You're right, Emma.
Yeah.
Dylan, I know
support you.
international matters really well, thank you.
Ned is our international correspondent.
I know
Yeah,
everything
exactly.
is on the map.
And we'll cut to our international affairs officer, Ned.
Imagine Ned being in like working for CNN. Some of them go, "What's going on, Ned?" Be like,
He'd be announcing Holly Willoughby's departure
Holly is.
from Good Morning
Yeah.
Britain live from a war zone. I don't know if it's Good Morning Britain or This Morning.
I don't get
really
up that
care.
early. I don't get up that early to find out. There you go. So, yeah. So keep Doucoure, sell Ben Godfrey. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, if we can get a decent enough offer for Godfrey, I wouldn't bother loaning Godfrey out because we're not going to get anything significant back in. But if we can get an offer anything around 10 million, I'd say see you later. And good luck to him. He's done nothing wrong. It's just not worked for him at Everton. He's had injuries and he's had obviously a spell with
He's had his
COVID.
development stopped.
And the manager changes again. And, his first season, he's played out of position. His second season, he wasn't really played as much, was he? And going forward, even less. So, hopefully we get an offer. Nothing personal against him. Just it's a good sellable asset that we don't really need. And we have very few of those.
That's it. Absolutely right. And if they're not playing, you have to make a decision on them. Dan says, "Hi, gents. I honestly don't think we can afford to lose him. If it's a big if, we were somehow however unlikely win our points back, then sitting here at 27 points may be a different answer. As a 31-year-old, probably last chance to make any money on him, but at the minute it's a no." No, I get that, and I said that myself over the weekend. If you're sitting there on 27 points, you might be looking and thinking, yeah, we could cope without him for the rest of the season. But
it's like I said at the start, and with a blank slate, better off in points. The financial side of things not hurting us as much, and you'd go, okay, maybe his age, his injury record, his wages, decent money up front. Yeah, we know that this player we can bring in for the same money because we can spend the money we get, and he's a lot younger. It's you'll have the conversation at least, won't you? But as it is, it just wouldn't make any sense.
Also, you'd like to think there's a plan. Like there's a plan to what we're bringing in and what we're letting go and how it works. And you have natural wastage of players leaving the club. Now, I don't see him as like natural wastage right now. I see a player who's actually still very much in his peak. Although, if the last month has told us anything, injuries will start creeping into his game, and that's obviously a big warning sign for a player. But I think if there is a plan, the plan will be to sell Onana next. And again, Onana's been linked with like Arsenal and Newcastle. I appreciate that, but Everton will definitely have a plan, and hopefully, what they'll have is they'll understand the finances, because, God, I hope somebody understands the finances. They'll understand the finances and know when is the best time to sell a player and how much they want for the player, and then what business they can do off the back of it. And obviously you hope for like no nasty surprises coming up in that time. No players wanting to leave or whatever else. But if they've got
long-term injuries.
if they've got a plan and they go, right, Onana is the next out the door. We want this amount of money for him, and we think we can get this amount of money for him. Then we can, with that money, we can take that money and use it to get this X, Y, and Z. And that's what you've got to do as a football club, isn't it? Stick to what your plan is and start forming a plan. Yeah, I know that we're going to talk about like Crystal Palace in more than a game as well, and I think they're a club that another one that illustrates quite recently. And you've got like on the flip side, you've got like Brighton who are buying like young talent from Boca Juniors, and you've got like Crystal Palace where the plan just seems to be let Roy cook, as the kids say, but like you just basically.
Stay up, get a few players, do a bit. Then players will probably go, and in that time, we've got a good youth set up, and hopefully we'll have another.
But it's all
survive.
It's all determined on what you've got available on the pitch, and as I said, your manager coming up with something where clubs need more than that now. And I think for Everton, it's really important. If Kevin Felwell has a plan, you stick to the plan. And you follow it, because that's the only way things change. And hopefully as you go along, and he said that himself, hasn't he, Felwell, is like, we're not in a position yet to buy players who's like, in 3 years are going to, that's when they come alive. The argument is maybe that we have done that, because I was thinking about this yesterday and thinking, well, what if, because the next one's going to be, isn't it, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, contract-wise. What if Everton have internally planned to sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the summer, and actually this season is just one big bedding in season for Beto, and then Chimiti becomes the second one, and this whole season is one big bedding in season for Chimiti as well as the backup. That if that's that is a plan, at least, isn't it? That's a plan, rather than saying, right, we're going to spend X amount on Dominic Calvert-Lewin to sign him up for a new contract. The plan might be, this is his last season. Beto's getting trained up, and that's why he's not like, we're not forcing anything on him, and then next season he's going to be leading our attack.
Yeah, it's certainly an option, isn't it? We do just need to have a long-term idea of where we're going to bring money into this club, because right now the club's bleeding money, and we need to have a plan of how much we're going to get and when, and hopefully it'll be good money. By doing that, we need to not leave ourselves too short on the pitch as well. There does need to be money coming back onto the pitch. If we sell Onana for 70 million, again, I don't think we're going to spend 70 million next summer if we do, but we might spend a good enough chunk of that to get a few players, and hopefully one of them will be another young star who, will have us bedding in season, like you said, and over time he'll come into the team and he'll be the next 70 million departure, and, there's other players in the meantime, like Calvert-Lewin, who might go, and, Braithwaite is the obvious one over time, although I don't think he'll leave in the summer because of his new contract. And, that's all well and good, and that's what PSR leaves clubs like Everton needing to do, because if you want to build infrastructure so you can build up your revenue, you need to spend money to do that. You can't spend that money without having the revenue. So the only alternatives are just get Champions League football, which, again, you can't do in the space of one season without spending money. Or it's sell players and, bring in smart replacements for less money and build that money up without weakening your team. And it's possible, but it's very hard, and it requires, a almost perfect game plan, really. So hopefully the club are ready.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's all we can hope for, is that they have that plan and they know what they're doing. And if their plan is to, I'm not saying, if their plan is that they're gonna, because with Dom's got a year in the summer. They have to make a decision. If he's not signing a contract, if he hasn't agreed to sign a contract in the summer, and the contract actually is not any more than he's on now, then they have to sell him. Now, a few people in the comments saying who would buy him. I'd straight off the bat, I'd say West Ham. I don't want to sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin, but I'm just being pragmatic. But straight off the bat, I believe. I think
Moyes should see something.
I think Moyes should go. He would fit us perfectly.
And they've got a bit of a striker situation as well, because they've spent money and it's not working. They still rely on Antonio some games, and I think Moyes could appreciate his game, and we're not going to get anywhere near the summer money we once thought.
No, not with a year left as well.
There's a year left. The form not being what it was, and the injuries being a massive factor as well. But again, it's money for a player whose value is going to go down. And look, it's one that we'll see with, because maybe Dominic Calvert-Lewin springs into life the second half of the season.
I don't want to sell him.
The absolute last thing we want is to sell him, new contract immediately. And you know what? It's big money, but we'll pay it because the money will be even less if we lose him and go down. So, that's one where the club will have ideas in place how they'll approach that, but they're waiting to see how the next 6 months goes.
You've got to have two plans in a way for every. Well, you've got to have two ways of looking at it for every player, haven't you? Selling and keeping. You've got to know if you do sell them, you've got to have a plan for that. And if you're keeping, you've got to have a plan for it. It's
everything needs to be costed, doesn't it?
Of course it does. Yeah, you've got to know if someone comes knocking on your door and tells you, we need X amount of money by this date or whatever, or we're a little bit high on our PSR this year. You always need that plan of you can't be caught. You've got to know if you have to sell somebody. This is something that, like Andy, the Piv, has been saying for years. You've got like literally when you buy a player, you've got to have a plan for them. Like even with a manager, the minute you bring a manager in, you've got to know the next fella. You've got to have a plan, and that's what all of the top clubs do. That's what Brighton have been doing for ages. Dan Ashworth, the minute he's gone, it's like, well, David Weir's here now. We've been training him up to be the next one. If you've got the minute you buy a player, it's almost like, what's his path? How much can we get for him? Who's the next one? That's what they've been doing, really successful. The other clubs are starting to cotton onto that now and do it themselves. Man City looking at the 15-year-olds, and obviously 17-year-olds in South America. You've got to be ready. You can't just go, I don't want to sell. I love that player. You do have to have a plan for these players, whoever they are.
The other side of that, though, is, clubs have been in a position where they've had a plan and then things have completely scuppered their plans that were out of their control. Leicester did the Brighton thing to a degree for a while and had good success, being in the top 6, they won a trophy, and they'd sell a player if the offer was big enough, the likes of Maguire, the likes of Chilwell. They were probably banking on selling one of James Maddison or Ndidi or Tielemans, and then the pandemic came and messed everyone's money up. And look, when you formulate your plans, you're not going to predict another pandemic, but they were on a knife edge with what they were spending, and their player sales. If they would have got a player sale, they would have been absolutely fine. The way the world worked, they didn't end up getting that. They couldn't spend money, and in the space of one season, they went from European contenders to relegated. And that's how much it hurt you, and that's how much your mistakes are punished in this PSR world.
Yeah, that's also, it's like, because you can, for Leicester, you could say Southampton as well a few years back when they just kept on selling every summer and thinking they were dead smart. But it's whether there's a conveyor belt of talent. It's whether you have a plan like a model. Brighton, clearly, and Brentford, they have models for players. Brighton's has obviously surpassed everybody else's and shouldn't just be like, oh, see, that's the thing about Brighton's. Everyone's like, let's all just do a Brighton. But their model is so specific because it is based on...
It's not a case of buy young player do well, leave. It's very specific
it's based on
detail.
The model it's based on is actually an algorithm that was developed by their owner, that like a gambling thing that he sells to the club. And I know Brentford have got something very similar.
ChatGPT,
and yeah, basically find me a good player. It's based on something that has proved very successful.
But it's very difficult to replicate if you don't have the technology yourself, because it's come from a different world almost, hasn't it? From the gambling world, it's been repurposed for football.
Yeah, and it works, and once you've got, and that's a plan that is like, someone like Southampton, the problem, or like Leicester is, you get caught up in that thing of like, we know what we want to do, and then like you said before, a new manager comes in or who just changes the way of thinking is like, no, I want to keep that player. Oh no, I want that player. And that's when people talk about the directors of footballs and manage. Just leave it all to the manager. Well, you can't do that because
managers have different styles and preferences, and the more you can have a director of football that sets a tone for how your clubs run, the less changes manager to manager, which means less money has to be spent on correcting things that seemed fine before. Yeah.
And for us, it's a case of letting Felwell get on with the job. Like anyone who's listened to any like the good interviews he's done of late, he says he's very calm, and he points out exactly what his job is and what his role is at the club, and you've got to let people get on with their jobs. And obviously this club for too many years have just not let directors of football. Brands is the biggest one. I don't think you can ever judge someone properly on a job if they're not allowed to do the job. I think you can be critical of somebody
Oh, absolutely.
wholeheartedly if they are 100% doing the job and no one's interfering and no one's getting involved. And it's very difficult. Seeing something over the weekend, I don't know if you've seen it, the Reading stuff about like saying the guys who were bought Reading didn't have a clue about football, so they allegedly turned to Kia Joraban, who started bringing in his players, and we had the same with our club.
It's absolute club killer, that man, isn't he?
Well, Mashiri done the same thing. Didn't have a clue about football, so decided instead of leaving it to his director of football to allow.
I mean, mate knows football and he knows a few players, and
to allow another person to come in and start doing things. And look what it's done to Reading. That name is synonymous with them and with us, and I felt really bad for Reading. Did you see the stuff last night?
I seen the Jim Shark link. And then William's story.
Within about an hour, he was like, "No," I was like, "Oh, that must be heartbreaking." Not heartbreaking because they've had a billionaire, like a name being linked with a billionaire. Just the idea of thinking for like an hour, this
could happen.
This could not even that. Just these are going to not own our club, and I was like, that is so our ass.
Yeah, to be fair, in the story that they were linked to and the Jim Shark lads was linked with them, he was also linked to become a fella called William Story as well, who is a con man of massive proportions, so it might not have necessarily been better for them. They still would have been like, this is still better because we're getting you don't want absolute charts. But
we know something about that at the moment, but no, you've got to have a club that just
it runs and is run by football and people who understand football, who understand their role. Villa had a similar thing to what you said about Reading a few years ago before they got their current ownership. Someone who was, I don't remember the specific role, but he was responsible for transfers and such. He used to work for Gatorade or something. Like he was like a market salesman for them. So he was like, I'm going to sign players for a Premier League football club now. It's just, you need specific tailored individuals who can do what is actually a very detailed job.
And there's no, certainly with that, I know that, listen, there's always noise about us, but if you take all the noise away from the points deductions and the independent commissions and all that, a lot of that sort of noise has gone away because it is literally Thelwell running it now, and the manager's allowed to do his job as well. A lot of that other stuff, it's mad that we've basically, the owner has essentially walked away. The board is...
Do we have a board anymore?
Exactly. We have names. And the CEO is basically the guy...
Seemingly disappeared.
Well, he's not. I mean, Colin Chong's job is to build the stadium.
I meant the old CEO.
No. No. Colin Chong his remit is to just keep things ticking over, but he's not a real CEO. But
he stepped up to the plate.
What I'm saying is though we've got no board, no CEO, no owner. And there's and no drama in terms of, I know we've got loads of drama, but what I mean is
on the pitch
we're not hearing all those different voices. Who owns our club? Blah blah blah. The director of football is doing his job, and the manager's doing his job. And if that had always been like that, Everton would be around like European places right now. If that had always been the case, if the owner had come in and just said to the director of football, "You're doing your job," the manager is, "You're doing your job," we would be really, really content, I think.
Yeah, it's being run on a skeleton crew at the moment, isn't it? But the people who are actually there day to day running it are professionals. And, the two head honchos at the club, the director of football and the manager, they have a bit of a philosophy overlap. By the look of it, they both understand what the other is about.
Football people?
Yeah, it's proper football and people who, obviously Dyche's tactics say old-fashioned, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, about hard work. Going to be good off set pieces, going to be hard to break down. That's a good system for making the most out of very little. A director of football who's worked with clubs who don't have massive amounts of money to spend, but he's also got the background with the Red Bull groups. He understands modern football. But run by professionals at the moment, it's just they're not the ones who should be running the club, if you understand me. There should be someone above them. It's just the people who do hold the positions at that club have gone missing. Colin Chong is the only one who heads up that role, and like you say, that's not his remit. He's stepped up to the plate as, you know, someone to carry that mantelpiece, but it's not really his job, is it?
No, it's not. And
so
until
the club just needs some sort of structure desperately, just someone who does actually own the club. Because as far as I'm concerned, Mashiri doesn't own us anymore. It's like if someone has a pet dog and they leave that dog on a street corner, yes, legally they are the owner, but if they don't have possession of that dog and don't intend to have possession of that dog ever again, they're not the owner.
Yeah. If you're not feeding it, then it's not yours. So that's what I say.
Yeah, feed your dogs, people.
Yeah, I mean that's the
real
main,
that's
the main takeaway,
really,
isn't it? It's the main takeaway, I'd say, from all this. Yeah, that is the main takeaway, as well as that it's Milan.
AC Milan.
It's Milan. I mean, you can call them AC Milan, but it is Milan.
Another takeaway we need is older viewers in the chat. Do you know or recognise the drink KA? Because Ped doesn't, but my interpretation of it has always been that it's a drink from slightly before my generation, which, you know, there's a bit of a gap between me and Ped, I understand.
Let me have a look at it.
The 2000s, you know, you're going to...
No, I'm not going to do anything. I just want to see what...
You know, the 2000s to the 1940s.
The taste of the Caribbean. See, we had Lilt, right?
I'd say it's a corner shop drink, though,
yeah,
like Lilt.
But I don't... Lilt wasn't a corner shop. Lilt was a proper drink. Like Lilt and Tango, they were proper drinks. This
we
is
still have Tango. Tango's still around.
Tango's come back. But this is...
Tango never left.
See, it's made by AG Bar, right? So AG Bar make like...
cream soda
Iron Brew and stuff like that.
Are they the same
They're like Scottish, aren't
Bar, like the company, and they make like cream soda and cherryade and that? See, legends of the game.
I think this is made to look like, and you've been conned into thinking that this was a drink.
No, it's what I've been told by like
by you?
The old heads in the community.
Old heads. This is
the OGs.
No, see, this is not a drink.
I mean, it quite literally is a drink. It's
KA sparkling fruit punch. It was not something. Not something I.
Maybe
remember.
That's what the cool kids drank. And
no, the cool kids didn't drink that.
Well, you weren't invited to the street corner.
No, I wasn't. No, I was too busy playing footy.
Yeah, so the cool kids
like
on the street corner at the KA, the cans of KA.
There you go. No.
Anything in the audience?
Basic Trig says Lilt is the only tropical taste.
I mean, there probably are other things out there that taste tropical.
Listen, Basic Trigs of my generation, I think, or around my generation, and we are telling you as the generation.
No, you're telling me, but I want to hear from the rest of them.
The rest of them?
Ned, ring your dad.
Ned just made a noise. There you go. I'll double check. I don't think... Andy says KA was a crap Ford car. Lilt, though, yes. Steve P says the streets will never forget KA.
Yeah, exactly, and the streets won't forget, but for the streets to not forget, they had to have remembered a long time ago. That makes sense. I know what I mean.
Gareth Jones says, yeah, I'm 39 and used to drink KA, but you could only buy it from a cash and carry.
Yeah, exactly. Proper corner shop drink.
Steve P says Jack, it's an early 2000s drink. I don't remember KA.
Early 2000s, 90s, 80s, it's all the same thing, really, isn't it?
I don't remember it. Simple as that. Maybe in the early 2000s, I wasn't
cool.
I just wasn't buying drinks from corner shops because I was too busy in pubs and actually.
Well, I'd love to be at the pub, but you know, duty calls. And it's not really acceptable to be in the pub at this hour on a Monday.
No, I'm not saying.
But when it is, I'll be there.
James is right. They didn't sell KA in my mum and dad's video shop, and that's correct because they only sold cool drinks like Lilt.
And videos.
Ah,
good.
Lilt. I mean, listen, I don't think it really matters.
It's a good point.
You've walked in with it, and I've gone, what's that? And you've gone, don't you remember this? And I've gone, no. I don't think any more needs to be said.
No, I just wanted to involve the audience so they know what's going on in our lives as well. But it's good, it's settled now. The people remember.
I don't know whether they do.
Some people remember.
Some people do. Maybe. I just love the fact that you think, or you're trying to tell me about a drink that you think was in my generation, and yet everything that I often say to you, you just go, don't know, never seen it. If it's not on TikTok, I don't know. There you go.
Still don't
Right,
use TikTok.
we'll be back on More Than a Game at 2:15. So come and join us. The link will automatically take you there. We might even continue this conversation. Who knows?
You've got time to run the shop and get a can of KA and review it while you click the hyperspeed link to come over to the MTAG stream. I'm getting us a sponsorship. Just work with it.
I don't know if you are. Don't know if you are. Right.
See you at MTAG.
See you in a bit.